So step 3 is going to actually be the avoidance portion of the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new sprite. So what we're going to do is we're going to use one of the pre-made ones. You can see that you kind of have a choice of things. You can use multiple ones. I'm just going to use a soccer ball just because it was right there. And what I want to do is I want to resize this again. So again, you're looking at a large costume size per se. Don't want it anything gigantic because then obviously I won't be able to jump over it. So kind of looking at this here, nice way to kind of check is to see, can I actually jump over that? Indeed, with that size I can here. I might have to adjust my jumping size just a little bit, but make that a little bit smaller. And then again, make sure that you reline that up based off from there. So since we're dealing with this rolling game, I'm actually going to put it back down at the bottom since we're worried about the contact of the ball with that of the actual stage itself. So when we look at this, what we're going to do is we need to add a little bit of code. So what we want to do for the code here is, again, our good old, when you click the flag key, but we want to actually have these things hidden. So we're going to look at looks, and we're going to have hide. And we're going to put in a forever loop here, you can see. So we're going to forever do something. Well, we want to wait for a duration of time to release that ball. And what we're going to do is create a clone of itself. So in that case, now we have that thing creating over and over and over again. So now, based off from that, we can have, so when the clone is created, so we have a duplicate of it, we want to actually have it go someplace and start someplace. So what we want it to do is we want it to go to, and we want our starting position. Based off from this, you can see the coordinates of 160, 160. Really depends on where you want the ball to start. To kind of stay the same, I guess, as the directions say, we'll go 160 over 160, so we'll have 160 and 160. And what we want it to do is we want it to actually show up now. So based off from that, we can see it show up. And what we want it to do is we want this to repeat for 22 times. You can change this depending on how long you think the person's going to be playing the game. But I know these numbers work, obviously, so we're just going to use these. And what we want to do is we're going to change the motion. So we're going to have it move for so long. In this case, we want to actually move. Sorry, we don't want to move, but we want to change y by. So we're going to change y by -4. So now we have a -4 value here for our y. So we know it's going to drop by -4. I don't know why this is deleting here. By -4. And we're going to repeat that 22 times. And then what we're going to do, we're going to repeat another movement here by 170 times. So really all this is the movement of the ball based off from the pathway in which is already pre-created for us. So what they're doing here is they're actually counting mathematically based off from the orientation and the distribution of the ball, how long does it need to roll in order to fall, to roll, to fall, to roll again. These are all values that you can change. You can change it to see if you want it to move quicker, slower, more to the one side, more to the other side. Totally up to you. But by playing around with those, you'll definitely see the difference in this. But we're just going to use their numbers since they already did the thinking for us. Since we're just learning how to code in general, that is the reason and the rationale behind what they're doing here. So you can see that they're going to be changing X, changing Y, continuation over and over again. Again, they took this and they used it as a multiplier in order to continue on with the ball movement and then actually delete the clone. So what you're going to see here is when I start this, you're going to see that there's a 3-second pause, the ball drops, and now you can see that the ball is actually rolling around a specific point. And you can see, again, it's all mapped out based off from the length of this. But you can see that, hey, look at what it's doing. It's going one time and it's rolling around a certain point. So what we need to do in order to do that is we need to continue on with some of this piece. So when it's rotating around in a particular rotation, what we need to do is we need to change this rotation aspect here. Instead of piece here, we want to actually do it around a fixed piece. So now that we do this and we stop and we relaunch, we're going to look at how this rotational piece can be developed. I think one of the pieces that we're going to run into is, since it's based off from the ground here, once we re-centralize this location for this actual piece, let's see if that does the difference. And that would be our difference. So since I used the bottom of it, it was rotating around the bottom of the ball instead of the center of the ball. So now another thing that we need to do is we need to continue on this script. So you have a couple different ways. You can add more code to the ball, so it'll move across all 3 platforms. So now we know that when the ball rolls, okay, we're rolling this far, and then it's going to drop, and then we need it to actually change in a positive direction. So we need to actually undo this. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate this line of code, because now instead of changing by Y, I want to throw in this X piece here, and get rid of that delete clone. So I actually want to change my X now by not -2 but +2, and we're going to see how far that'll take us across. Move this guy out of the way here. Again, you can do this mathematically if you'd like. You can actually count the point here. So on the Y, or X would be -157. You can count all the way to here, which is about 157 again. And then just do the math, 30 times, or 170 times 2, which actually equals out pretty darn good. We just need one more piece here. So to have that one last piece here, we'll put in another repeat. So repeat here, so our Y is changing. So you can see that it gets all the way down to the ground before it deletes. So now we'll repeat this by actually 170. We don't want our delete clone inside of that. We want to change X by, so we're going to go change X by, and we're going to do that down here. So change X by, and now we're going to have back to our -2. We'll have our turn motion still the same. One thing you are noticing is that the turn directions are not changing, so we do want to clean that up. So this turn to the left, we want it to actually be a turn to the right. So you can see that these are just finicky things that, especially if you're competing, are going to make the difference between a good grade and a bad grade. But you can see now, if I stop this, you can see that this is going to actually continue on. And you can see it gets a little bit laggy, just because the amount of sprites that are on there and with the length of code. So you can see that the ball does roll, and then it turns directions, and it continues to roll. And then it continues to roll all the way down to where we tell it to delete. So, and that's actually about where the person starts. So that's a good line of code there, which we do like. Now the last thing that we need to do is just have a piece of code for the ball, and if it interacts with our sprite. So what we're going to do is, under when the clone starts, so we're going to just actually create another one of those. So when the clone starts, we want to actually forever have this possibility of if something happening. So we if, and in this case we're going to have our sensing piece, so we're going to actually be touching something. So if touching, and it's not going to be the mouse pointer, so we actually want the sprite here. So Pico walking, we want it to broadcast something in this case, so we're going to have a broadcast. And what do we want it to broadcast? Well, we want it to broadcast a new message, and that new message is going to be called hit, and that's what it's going to broadcast, and that's going to be the end of it. So now what we need to do is we need to put in, since we have a broadcast, we need to have a broadcast piece match the thing. So this is what signals something else to happen. So this is a nice characteristic that you can use when combining two sprites that are going to interact with one another seamlessly. So what I'm doing is I'm broadcasting a signal from the soccer ball, and now I want my sprite to pick that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say when receive, so when they receive that broadcast that's created, what I want to do is I want to change my position of my character. So I want to actually point in the direction of in this case, I want it to be pointing in 90, so it looks like it's starting over again, and I want it to actually go to a certain set of coordinates. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go to, and in this case they already actually did the math and the coordinates for us. So it's going to be negative 210, negative 120. So now you can look at this, and when you actually indeed run into a ball, you're going to end up with this happening. So we're going to look at this. He's going to run into the ball. Okay, the receive, and you start over again. One thing you want to do also that I kind of forgot about in the beginning is putting in that starting location, just so that way it starts in the same spot every single time and looks nice and seamless there. So every time you'll start in the same spot. Now you can move around, so the person's going to slowly, again, this is something you can speed up. Based off from those, you can now speed up. And if you can't, in fact, jump over a ball and you get hit, you start all over again. So again, this is just a nice way here to show avoidance. So when you're looking at this avoidance factor, you can see, okay, you have to avoid these objects. If you don't, what happens? Well, in this case, you restart. So that is this step of dodgeball.